This here is a movie that for a brief moment I could not stop seeing advertisements for. Every time I turned on Facebook, there was either a review or an interview or some other hype about it that I deliberately ignored because I wanted to see it for myself first. Because I was naive enough to think I could afford it by the time it did drop. On that note, it was a very pleasant surprise to find it on POV Horror, and even if I can't give it a full review, I can still summarize it. Followed, if you have been living under a rock, is the latest found footage film to break out of the niche community and into the public limelight, joining ranks with giants in the field like Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield, and Wreck. Told through screen capture of a dark and insidious figure, the story revolves around a supernatural and true crime YouTuber, Mike, aka Drop the Mic, who has been offered an obscene amount of money if he can grow his subscriber numbers enough before Halloween. And to accomplish that goal, he plans to spend the Halloween weekend at the infamous Lenox Hotel. It seems like a cakewalk to the jaded and insensitive Mike, despite his co-workers' discomfort, but as we all know, there is a power to the camera lens, a power to disprove and affirm. And the deeper you dig, the closer you come to bring the ghosts of the past back to life. And it's a great found footage movie. And a very basic horror movie. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is one of those movies where its reputation is bigger than its presence. It does have a modicum of depth to it, and the theme of true crime, internet celebrity, and YouTube personalities are all relevant to our modern living, but it reminds me of Joker. Competently put together, beautifully shot, but the more you think about it, the more you realize it's not all that profound. It does put a twist on a few long-time tropes, but ultimately it's still the same tropes that you've seen in 100 movies before, and lessons you've learned just by being online. Starting with our main character, Mike, played by Matthew Solomon. He is the desperate, shallow vlogger trope personified, embarrassing himself and everyone around him with his hipster attitude and view count begging. But he's got enough charm and confidence to not make the character completely unbearable, just enough for you to look forward to his death. There are a few developments and revelations about his character made throughout the film that makes him just a bit more sympathetic, but none of it is all that unique. He's in desperate need of money and will do anything for views. He is so apathetic he's downright tone deaf until he experiences reality for himself. He goes through an arc where he decides to turn his life around and become a better person. It's been done. More specifically, it reminds me of A Christmas Carol, where the asshole has a change of heart when he suffers at the hands of the spirits that visit him, including the peanut gallery of side characters. While each of them have a story of their own, they mostly exist as someone for Mike to interact with throughout the film. His fiancée Jess, played by Kelsey Griswold, is not happy with his chosen career path. His editor Nick, played by Caitlin Grace, is so overwhelmed by work and stress she's bordering on a breakdown. His best friend and cohort Christopher, played by Tim Dreyer, believes in the supernatural and constantly warns Mike of the danger therein. And last is the girl Christopher has a crush on, Danny, played by Sam Valentine. She's there because at first glance Christopher refused to enter the hotel, but Mike used Danny to lure him back. One by one, these characters all give valid reason for why staying in this hotel is a bad idea. Until eventually Mike is left alone to be tormented by the spirits of the building before he has his epiphany and decides to do something better in his life. It really does remind me of A Christmas Carol, even if the means are completely different. There's also the historian Wallace Fleischer, played by John Savage, but he mostly exists as foreshadowing to the events that follow, aside from a minor but important revelation near the end. All of this amounts to a ghost story with a large focus on the nature of YouTube celebrity. Not so much on the culture surrounding it as the celebrities themselves and how the occupation affects them and everyone around them. Mike pushes his team beyond their comfort zone for his own selfish gains, until eventually it backfires and he finds himself alone, traversing a knife's edge of success or failure. Despite never giving it up, his persona is nothing but a sham to attract viewers and distance himself from an uncomfortable reality. And chasing the dream of financial independence, he has almost nothing for it, and it's only driving him further into perdition. And every single one of those things makes me want to say, no shit. I realize I'm a YouTuber, so maybe I have a bit more insight into those things, but I feel like anyone who has spent more than a few years online are aware that chasing riches on YouTube is a pretty rotten undertaking. Which is why you should only make YouTube videos for fun. So no, this movie is not a revelation. But if you think of it as just a horror movie, it's still pretty good. There are a lot of very spooky scenes in this film, and for what it's worth, the characters are pretty entertaining. Even Mike managed to make me smile as much as he frustrated me, which I suppose speaks to his capability as a YouTuber. I can see him having a few followers, even if he is an ass. Or maybe because of it. I've read the actors were cast before Todd Click finished writing the script, so he could write it according to the actors' own characteristics, which makes me hope I never have to meet Matthew Solomon in real life. But the result is a remarkably genuine character for the film. The cinematography as well is excellent. It gets around the issue of who edited the footage by being a combination of traditional found footage and screen life. The bulk of the film consists of video already edited and uploaded to YouTube and replayed on a laptop, and there is even an explanation given for the sound effects and background music added into the final sequence of the film. Sort of. Let's say its believability comes down to whether or not you enjoyed grave encounters. I should also briefly mention, the hotel in the film is heavily inspired by the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. So much so, it's pretty much just the names that are different. And a major plot point for the film is the death of Megan Kim, who was recorded behaving erratically in an elevator before her body was found in the boiler room. It mirrors the real death of Eliza Lamb at the Cecil Hotel, which was covered in the documentary The Vanishing at Cecil Hotel. For a moment, the director Antoine Lay was in hot water for seemingly exploiting the tragedy. But as far as I can tell, he was never brought to court, and the film wasn't made with malicious intent. The film itself doesn't really comment or belittle the tragedy, but I can tell you it is used for dramatic effect in the very memorable elevator scene. A bit uncomfortable perhaps, but no more than any other fiction based on real tragedies. All in all, Following is not as good as the hype makes it out to be, but when is that ever the case? It's still perfectly serviceable, and I can see myself watching it many times over. It won't change your life or how you view horror, but it's got a good cast, decent spooks, and it holds up to the end. The moral and themes were dated even in 2018, but I can't say I didn't enjoy it, and I sentence it to a 6 on a scale of 11.